So good evening, everyone. And, nice to be here again with you today. And with that type of introduction, you put me under pressure. I thought yesterday I just shared some thoughts, and today I'm supposed to share on leadership. That's what I propose to do. So leadership is a much talked about topic. Everybody talks about it from one way or the other. If I were to ask to show by hands, anybody can volunteer. Which of the persons on the screen do you consider a leader? Before we go on, if I came in here, I didn't know what this was going on, what this place was about, and I wanted to understand. I'm sure I would have waited quietly for the gentleman to sit down, and I will go and ask him because he's the master of ceremonies. And I assume that being master of ceremonies, he's the leader, at least of the ceremonies. So I would have identified him as the leader. Or if I wanted to know who was the leader of the singing group, I would have spoken to the organist or the one who sang. So I would have identified him. So even when we don't know, we can identify leaders. Which of the people on the screen do you consider a leader? Or none of the above? And why? I want it to be interactive. It's a tough choice. Why? So, we have Trump there. Quite everybody knows him. Yeah. Okay, MC.
All of them.
Leaders.
All of them are leaders.
Okay.
And the why is that they all contributed to nations and the globe in different ways.
So if I were to ask you to choose just one of them to lead you,
I'll choose Mandela.
You choose Mandela. Okay, the interesting choice about Mandela is that he is dead. In other words, Mr. What's your name? Akwe is choosing Kwe.
Yes.
Kwe is choosing somebody who is dead to lead him. That's quite interesting. But he's not wrong. That's his choice. Who will you choose? Paul. Why? I want these things to stay on the screen. I'm not okay. Yep.
I believe Paul has been able to revolutionize Rwanda beyond our imagination or my imagination. In the midst of, it looked almost impossible.
20 years after the genocide.
Yes.
It's changed the story.
Totally. So that's who I think.
Okay.
Is a leader.
Anybody has a third choice? We have the dead, we have the living. Yes, any choice.
I will choose Mandela.
Yes. Oh, I want a third person. But explain why Mandela.
Yes. So Mandela, because when you look at African country, it's not easy to forgive easily. And so being able to forgive.
Okay. Last one. I want somebody different from the first two. Or we only have Paul Kagame and Mandela as the choices here. Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's move on because of time. The interesting thing is that we have people on the screen who are all leaders. And somebody chooses a person who is dead. In other words, the persons he looks up to or ready to follow need not be alive. That's quite interesting. A lot of us follow Jesus. He died 2,000 years ago. So leadership is not only when you are alive. It's about how you are able to influence people, including people who have never met you. Incidentally, I'm not sure the persons who chose Kagame or Mandela met them. I've had the fortune of meeting Kagame. I'd never met Mandela. But I'm sure if we were even to ask about Boris Johnson, he will also have people who look up to him. Now, the point here is that if I were to ask about the bad sides of these leaders, you will be able to tell me. And if I were to ask a different question as to which of them is good and which of them is bad, you'll be able to rank them in order of, ranking of good and bad. The point I want to make is this: a leader need not be good. In other words, bad people can be leaders. You've heard the story about Reverend Jim Jones. How many of you have heard about Reverend Jim Jones? Reverend Jim Jones was the one who convinced his congregation that the world was coming to an end and they should all poison and die. And they did. Yeah, they did. They all drank poison and died. He killed an entire group of well over 900 people. He's not a good leader by our standard. Does anybody here consider Hitler a good leader by any standard? But the whole Germany followed him to the Second World War, and he almost brought the world to a standstill. I'm making no judgment. The point I'm making is, one, a leader need not be alive. A leader need not be good. The important thing is that he must be followed. That's what makes a leader. He just must be followed. He may be following people to doom and people to where it will be good. The judgment as to whether it's good or bad is a different matter. And if we don't understand it that way, we may just focus on the good side. Then in always talking about leadership, we may confuse types of leadership: good, bad, transformation, international, etc., etc. All those are leaders because people follow them and people look up to them. And I want to lay that foundation before we go on. All right. So we have another slide. This is a classroom, and there are 3 hands up. If you walked into that classroom and I was to ask who is the leader, you may probably not be able to tell. Probably it is just people who are children who are volunteering to answer a question that the teacher has asked. But assuming this is their first in class and the teacher were asked to choose a class captain, I can almost bet 9 out of 10 that the class captain will be one of the 3 people who raise their hands. Most of us have been in class 1 before or first day at school, and somehow we end up with a class 1. Nobody elects a class prefect, but we find one. So even at that age, there is a leader, chosen not necessarily by us who are following him, but by the person who is guiding us, who by some intuition or some instinct is able to determine who is best to write the names of talkatives among the group. That's all he or she needs from us. So at times we choose a leader, at times a leader is chosen for us, and at times the leader arrives because he volunteered. Now we have on the screen roles that normal people will play. And I'm sure if I were to go through, you will find that in this room today, somebody will watch Netflix. You are a son, you are a daughter, you are a father, mother, lawyer, church member, leader, social media platform administrator, a friend of somebody, classmate, family, extended family, football fan. But you'll be surprised that football fans, for example, may form fans club. And in the fans club, there is a leader. All he may want to do is to shijama, as we say in Ghana, and be leading the people in giving the support. Or there may be somebody who organizes a group of people who like to spend their time on Netflix and discuss movies. There are times I see people discuss Indian movies after they have watched it. I used to watch radio then, Kung Kung Bagya or something like that. I don't know if I got it right. And people are discussing it. And they have a group of people who discuss. They have a leader. And we ignore this. But at least when it comes to the discussion, that person may be the person who directs which version they should watch. And who I can see somebody really laughing. She cannot understand why anybody should be doing that. But that's a group. That's the fun they have. And they also have a leader. So we are beginning to see in very, very diverse ways. So the question is, if I were to ask around again, where are you a leader? Because from what I just did, we just saw that somebody can be leading in various ways. There could be an Ebusian penny sitting in the midst of this room, but if you were to, ask, if we were to ask for the leader here now, we may not find that he is a leader at the moment in time. He may not be the one organizing this session. So if I were to ask, why are you a leader? It may be a leader at home, a leader because you are a child among your siblings, a leader in school, as an adult in whatever role you play, at your workplace, other activities, general in society because people look up to you and people follow you, or in a family and you have united the family in a collective manner, charging them towards their future. And that is the role that you are playing at the moment in time. Leadership, therefore, exists in respect of the moment a person finds himself or herself. I want to draw certain basic conclusions. Moment in time, you may or may not be a leader, just for that particular moment. And one of the things many is leaders for a moment in time, period. Heard the previous speaker talk about that. It means that moment in time, it doesn't matter how long you stay in power. I think Africa's longest reigning president, he's still in, I think he's in Guema of Equatorial Guinea, I think so, if I get it right. He's been there for about 37 years. Paul Biya has been there for equally about 37, 38 years. They don't get as much bad press as perhaps Mugabe did. They're longer than Mugabe. It doesn't matter how long. One day they will exit. Mugabe finally exited. Now, if you understand that leadership is for a moment in time, there are certain things you try to avoid. I'll give an example. In a tweet I made this morning, I talked about the fact that as we succeed, and when you succeed, it's easy for you to become a leader just because you are succeeding. If you take Michael Bolt, what's his name? No, the Jamaican athlete. Steve, yes, Usain Bolt. If you take Usain Bolt, like that, at some point, he led consistently until, of course, age catches up with him. Now, the point is, at the time that you are exiting, it's a question of what are the arrangements in place for what you are supposed to do, or you have to a point, and who replaces you. But a lot depends on how much pompous you were when you were a leader. And that's what I was referring to my tweet this morning. Leadership can do one thing. Just because you're a successful athlete, you may end up becoming the leader of the athletes. As soon as something happens to you, it tells you that you have reached your limit and therefore you must be worshipped. Everybody must obey you. So it kills your leadership because leadership is a system of continuous growth. If you are not continuously growing and improving yourself, then you have reached a limit. Once you reach a limit, you want to be worshipped, you have reached that limit. The other thing about leadership is that because it's success, it tends to make you greedy. And the moment you become greedy over the period, what has happened is that the moment you become greedy, what happens is that it turns the brain from a creativity machine to a machine designed to grab what other people have created. Let me repeat that. When you become pompous, you tell yourself, I have reached the limit and I ought to be worshipped. When you become greedy as a leader because you want to possess it all or you want to control everything, you are not delegating. Greed is not only when you are grabbing. It could be when you are not delegating, when you think everything should be done by you. It turns the brain from a creative, as it were, organ to an organ designed to grab that which other people have created. Because you are trying to grab it all. All right. And that's important for us to understand. Okay. Now, that means since leadership can occur in several places, it means there are several areas of leadership. And one of the areas we don't talk about most is self-leadership. Because if you cannot lead self, you cannot lead others. Anybody who cannot lead self cannot lead others. It does not matter that you are in a position. And the mistake we make is that we think everybody in a position is a leader. That is why in Africa we like blaming our leaders all the time. Because we assume that everybody in a position is a leader. I will touch on that shortly. First, to lead, you must learn to lead yourself. And I'm speaking from experience. And leading self, among other things, include being very disciplined. If you are not very disciplined, it's very, very difficult to lead yourself. Two things which are important when it comes to leading self. There are many, many things we can talk about, but for want of time, I'll just talk about two. One is discipline. Discipline is the ability to constantly do that which you have set on yourself to do. If you have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day, that's discipline. Of course, it doesn't mean once in a while you will not sleep past 5. But the discipline to repeat, to come back, to make sure that you are constantly doing, irrespective of all the challenges, that's what discipline is about. You can turn it in different ways. So far as you are insistent or you are consistent in dealing with it. The second thing about leading self that I want to talk about, of all the many things, is being attracted away from your path by things which look very, very attractive. Let me explain. I believe, and you don't necessarily need to agree with me, that everybody has a path. And that's the reason why God gives us talent. I believe in God. So God gives us talent. And you are, let's say, to walk from here to where this chair is. And you can be the most disciplined person. Every morning you take a step walking towards the chair. But as you aim towards the chair, different things begin to attract you. Things which are much more attractive than where you want to go. And at times, attraction comes as a result of difficulties you face. Because I'm facing difficulty now, there is lesser difficulty here. So the tendency is for me to diverge from the path. You don't have to go far. Politics is a very attractive way to move away from your path. There are many people who entered politics not because they intended to do it, but because fame and all the grand office that comes with it is so attractive that maybe this is the path they wanted to. So they go into politics, enjoy all the things that they want to enjoy, and after a certain long, many, many years in age, they come back. Of course, at times we call them statesmen. I still don't understand what that means anyway. I'm unable to understand how a person who divides society for so long, when the person is 90 years, suddenly becomes a statesman and unites society. It doesn't sit well with me. But let's come back to the point. There are some who are meant to be in politics. That's fine. But there are some who enter politics just by way of an accident because it was attractive. It was fame. There are some who leave the path because something, maybe money. It could be anything. The point is, everybody has within him or herself that strong desire of what that person seeks to achieve. If it is politics, then I'm okay with it. But if it is not politics as an example, and it made you diverge from your path, then guaranteed you will regret. You will regret. And that is why I don't believe in one of the most famous and most popular concepts. It's called self-actualization. Apologies if you believe in it. I don't believe in self-actualization at all. And people get surprised when I tell them it's one of the wrong concepts. There are so many concepts that deceive people. Because self-actualization, simply put, as mainly understood, is that you can do all the wrong things or the difficult things in life, and then when you achieve a certain height, you do the things you love. It doesn't sit with me very well with me. So far as I'm concerned, the things you love is what gives you money. Money does not create the things you love. It is the things you love that creates money. There's absolutely nothing on earth which cannot generate money if you do it very well. At my age, when I was very young, there were a group of people we used to call seamstress and tailors. And these days, we call them fashion designers. And they are very, very rich. There were people, football was not, above all. Today, I know somebody who is a lawyer and actually stopped practicing law, young person, and is playing football. And he will come back to law practice. Now, if you have a talent, that talent, no matter what that talent is, can create money for you. But if you believe in concepts of self-actualization, you tend to believe that, let me do something else and I'll come back. I'll give you the second reason why I don't believe in self-actualization, by the way. And again, that belongs to another. We are talking about leadership. It sets a hierarchy, and you can look at the self-actualization pyramid, and I don't care who created it. It doesn't matter to me how popular or how learned the theorist is. If I don't believe in it, I don't believe in it. The pyramid actually places love not at the top. So far as I'm concerned, love is above all. Any pyramid which doesn't place love at the top doesn't make meaning to me. So having said that, the point I'm making is that if you desire to do something, start doing it now and perfect it. Don't wait for the future so that you can self-actualize by doing things which you don't love. All right. So that's were just the 2 points about leading self. And those are the 2 important things for me. Anything you love and you can do it in a disciplined manner, you will end up succeeding. You may end up being in corporate life. That's one area that people lead. And leading in corporate life has its own different, attributes. You cannot have one attribute for leadership which is common to everything. Because in corporate life, you are not just performing, you are also making sure that the organization itself is performing. If you are performing as an individual and you are not performing not helping organization to perform, you won't rise to be a leader. Or even if you do, you just lobby to become a leader and you won't be a very good leader. There's leadership for corporate entities, which is different, and at times we mix it. A corporate entity, which is not a human being, can also be a leader. There are some corporate entities you look up to. If, for example, I ask you in Ghana, which is the leading corporate entity when it comes to telecoms, I'm sure you say, MTN, as an example. Why? Because they control a significant, I don't work for them. So I'm using this as an example because we all know that. Because it controls a significant part of the market. So even a non-human being can be a leader. In other words, if you were an entrepreneur in this room and you set up your business, not only are you supposed to lead yourself, you can also help your entity become a leader in terms of the market size that it occupies, or how much it occupies the minds of the people. For corporate entities, I'll give you just one simple principle as a leader. If you want a corporate entity to be a leader, many people make the mistake of talking about the first mover advantage. Now, the first mover advantage is true, but it is often misapplied. Because the belief is that because that entity was the first to come to the market, then it becomes the leader. No, it is not first mover advantage. It is he who is first in mind. And the two are separate. Actually, if you use MTN was not the first telecom company to come to Ghana. So why are they the ones who are, for want of a better word, controlling the market? Because they were first to occupy our mind at a point when everybody didn't know what was called CLIP, the caller identification pin. Those who are old enough, you see a number calling your phone, and MTN came from nowhere with, why are you answering a number when you should know who is calling you? And that's when Begina Bontin and Mika say became fashion. The rest is history. So you need not be the first. Once you can occupy the mind, you will find that people tend to actually call even the whole industry after you. That is why people call fast food papaya. You haven't heard that before. Or people call newspaper Daily Graphic. Or they call toothpaste Pepsodent. Or they call filling stations Shell. I've seen that over and over and over. Because it's in the mind. So the way in which a corporate entity controls or leads is different from the way an individual leads. Okay. And then, of course, the famous one, the political and public sector life. That there's a distinction between popularity and doing good. We will touch on that. So it's important, since leading self is very key, that you understand yourself. And understanding yourself means knowing your talent, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, etc., and what is needed, and being disciplined and utilizing what you already have. Once you do that, the rest will be tactics, strategy, etc., etc. I've already talked about avoiding decisions that are attractive or doing things that are attractive, but that are actually distracting you from the path. Okay. The next thing about leadership that I want to share, irrespective of where you are, is mindset and attitudes. Mindset and attitudes. Yesterday I talked about mindset. But when it comes to a leader, the mindset is a slightly different issue. It is what constantly engages your mind. And that's very, very important. Are you in a situation where you get diverted from the path every now and then because somebody annoyed you, and as a result, you are no more pursuing what you wanted to pursue? Do you get angry too often? Do situations make you feel hopeless? Because if you feel hopeless, you are going to pass on that hopelessness to the people who follow you. Remember, we started talking about leadership as the person we follow. People chose here Mandela, who is dead. So if Mandela exudes hopelessness, people will not follow him even when he is dead. That's very important. It means he exudes hope. Cynicism, persons who every little thing, they look for the bad sides and they are looking, criticizing, talking to each other about all those kind of things that are negative, and so negativity in the environment. Bitterness, they never forgive, they never let go because somebody did something wrong against them. You may be a leader, and remember I showed the first slide. It doesn't mean that you are not a leader. Let me go back to that slide. Some of the traits I've talked about, if I were to ask you, you will find it in some of these leaders. But they are still leaders. Remember the second principle I gave? I gave two first principles. One, a leader need not be alive. Two, a leader need not be good. So if you have these traits, you may nevertheless be a leader, but it doesn't mean you are good. You will have some of these traits. It's whether that is the traits you want to carry as a leader. Next, is your leadership about concern or influence? And they are two different things. If we are to leave this room now and we start discussing what happened here, we will have two distinct types of discussions. Those who are just concerned will be wondering about the mistakes that happened here. Why was David given a microphone that has on his head here and it was not working? We're not hearing the sound. Those were the mistakes that he made. Why were the chairs not arranged on time? Why was it that the organist was going one step behind or ahead of the singer? They are concerned. Those people tend to also discuss a lot of things in the general society. Football match was played, and they spent the whole morning discussing the football match. They are concerned. A person who focuses on his area of concern is a person who is spending so much time on things they can do nothing about. So far as you cannot do anything about it, spend less time on it. I'm not saying don't spend time on it, but the more you cannot do anything about it, the lesser the time you should spend on it. So let's take it that we came and the chairs here were not properly arranged. And you wanted to be a person of influence. The best you need to do is to start arranging them. Or simply tell God's will or Mr. Quay, these chairs, don't you think that the spaces between them are too close? Yeah, let me start shifting them. Mr. Quay says, no. That's not how we want it. Okay, can I do one? And you see, you are influencing him. That's just small step influences him. And if you carry that step over and over and over, you will find that a day will come when you become so influential and you will start operating in your area of influence. Now, I need to explain this a bit more. Area of concern lessens you. Area of influence increases you. Now, if we started talking about, let's talk about Africa, and I tweet about Africa a lot. I tweet about Africa a lot because I believe there are certain things that I can influence. And if you cannot influence those things, then don't bother about them. If you focus on your area of influence today, you manage to arrange the chairs, I can bet the next time CAM is going to do Uplift, they will call you to be in charge of chair arrangement. And the next time you arrange chairs very well, they will say be in charge of the hall. Because gradually, your influence will increase and then it expands. But if you focus on concern and you only talk about it, nobody is going to call you to do anything about it. If you happen to be working in a company and your chief executive made a statement and the messenger made a statement and the news media was there, they will cover the chief executive, even if what he said is more foolish than what the messenger said. That's the truth. Because by his position, he is more influential than the messenger. But if the two of them went to a church and the messenger happens to be the chief organist and the chief executive happens to be an ordinary church member, just came for it, unless the church loves money, they are more likely to listen to the organist more than. So it depends on where you are and what you want to influence. The key point I'm making is that, yes, be concerned about things, but start influencing things that you can influence immediately. And the more you influence it, the more this area of concern diminishes and the area of influence grows. And the more you become bigger in whatever area you find yourself. Since we are in Africa, I highly recommend that certain characteristics or certain traits be built if you want to remain a leader. Because everybody invariably either is or becomes a leader at some point in time, or loses leadership at some point in time. Because Africa is a difficult continent. It's a challenging terrain. Ideally, you should plan. But please, I need to explain. You don't always need to plan. Those who want to start business, and because I'm mentioning this because I know the entrepreneurs here, who have a brilliant idea they want to start business, and they sit and they plan and they plan and they plan, and they get into what we call paralysis of analysis, and they never start. Next time you see somebody has started and you wondered what happened. There are two things about starting a business or planning that people miss. First, businesses which grow always start in chaos. Two, businesses which grow, plan, and become orderly after they have started in chaos. The point is, it is better to start in a chaotic manner, but it is dangerous to continue in a chaotic manner. Even when God created the earth, if you want to go to the Bible, it was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. But subsequently he said, let there be light. Let there be, the sun should go here, the firmament, the water should go here. Order was placed after chaos. Order always follows chaos. Don't wait for the thing to be perfect before you start. There is a danger also when you wait for that which is perfect, because you will never become a leader. Now, this is why. The human being is never looking for that which is perfect. The human being is always looking for that which is better. If I were to bring some surroundings now which is better than what you have, you will prefer that. Because things can always be better. That is why we say there is always room for improvement. So far as what you have, the idea you have is better than what is existing, proceed, even if it is chaotic. And set the order in place. Because whenever God gives you an idea, he gives it to 5 people. It is a question of who starts it first. I'm talking from personal experience. God doesn't give an idea to one person because he knows one person will fail. It is like the parable of the sower. It will fall on the rock, some will fall on good soil, etc. Be the good soil. That's the point I'm making. And being the good soil means be fast and water it. So that's in Africa. And it's important you have that in Africa because this is a continent which is open. There's so much opportunity here. So if you have an opportunity, work on it very fast. I've talked about plan. Build trust. I will return to trust. The only way to build trust is to be trusted. And you cannot be trusted if you are a liar. And the worst way for entrepreneurs to become known as liars is to advertise on things which are not true. Because if you tell everybody this is what you can deliver and you can't deliver, they will say, oh, halfway down. This man, and then that's the end of the story. And then by admounting you, it is better if you had not advertised. When you are trusted and you make a mistake, people even give excuses for you. They will say, oh, this man, that's not how he is. Something must have gone wrong. Haven't you seen somebody who has fallen and somebody is saying, no, something must have gone wrong. Because over the period, we have consistently proved, and that is why consistency is one of the best qualities a leader should create. Because if you are consistent, they know this person delivers. Something went wrong. So if you promise, deliver. And if you don't deliver, explain why you couldn't deliver. Don't lie about it. Because when you lie, people see through it. Look, haven't you sat in a crowd before and somebody is talking and you can see he is lying? You don't know he is lying, but you know. You feel in your heart that this person is a liar. Haven't you seen people who you don't know them anywhere, but as they start speaking, you don't believe them? There's an experiment done in a certain college in the US. They divided the classroom into two, just like this. And they divided it. One group sat here, another group sat here. This group couldn't see this. This other group couldn't see. And they had a glass in front, just like I'm standing here. What the students didn't know, and the lecturers didn't know, was that none could hear the other. But you were allowed to ask questions as if they could hear you. All that the lecturers did was to stand there and teach. This person is teaching here, this person is teaching here. But the students couldn't hear. And they were asked to score, which is the best lecturer. One group said this lecturer gets 80 over 100. This one says 28 over 100. Then they swapped them. Same thing. This lecturer who got 80 here got 78 here. The one who got 28 here got 22 here. In other words, people judge you even when they cannot hear you. That's the truth about life. As soon as you step, they judge you. Now, why is this important for leadership in Africa? In Africa, because of the nature of our society, we distrust before we trust, generally. Look, there are stories. Somebody went to New York, to his two friends, and they are going to join a lift. And the other one calls the guy. Akwesi, I don't know if you understand Tree. If you don't understand, let somebody near you interpret to you. Akwesi, na obia befo ade hwe mba na asonafo mienu ko sha ade mu a ebia na asem aba. I mean, essentially the guy was afraid that if two people from a particular clan in Ghana enter that lift, something could happen. So apparently he was surprised. His friend, very educated with a master's degree, throughout their stay in New York, never entered the lift with his colleague because they were both from the Asona clan. I don't know how true this is. The point is, he distrusts so much, he has trust issues. He distrusts the lift. Now, if you tell lies, you are confirming to your audience that you can't. Do you understand? Do not confirm what they already believe. It is when you prove over and over and over, then you realize that they come to believe you. Solve problems. That's what leadership is about. It's not meant to live with problems. Defend those behind you or following you, your subordinates. And be consistent and don't abuse your position. Don't expect to be carried shoulder high. And ask questions about your role. What am I trying to do? When and how? Otherwise, you are just talking. It doesn't really, if you are not asking these questions, what exactly am I trying to do? And when am I trying to do it? When am I supposed to do it? How am I going to do it? And if I have answered these questions, then what is important? What is the important things I need to do? Because there are times you can't do everything. And MC said it, because none of them have it all. So if you can't do all, what are the most important you can do today? Like I said yesterday, just make a telephone call. Or today, all I need to do is to make sure that I have sewn the right clothes when I'm going for the interview. Or today, I have actually checked on Google this area that I want to establish my business in. What are the nuances there? Or this position I have taken as a pastor of this church. What am I supposed to do since this church is different from the church I came from in some village? Whatever role, or if I'm a politician or I'm an MP, what exactly am I supposed to do? Ask that question. And of the things I'm supposed to do, what are the important things if I do? If I don't do anything at all, as we say, which of them can I do that will let people know that at least I tried? Now, here is when it gets tricky. Ask these questions. Either yourself as a leader, or if you are a follower. And by the way, many people forget that at times the person you follow is following somebody else. Yes. At times the person you are following is himself following somebody else. Because leadership comes in stages. So if, for example, you are following the class rep in your class, he is following the entire school rep, and the entire school rep is following the headmaster. It's in that hierarchy. So it's important that we understand we are not, a leader doesn't necessarily mean that he is the overall. So first, whether you are following or you are being followed, there are certain interesting questions that I think is worth asking. Are you in charge but not being followed? You can be in charge but you are not being followed. The fact that you are in charge doesn't mean you are being followed. Being followed means that you are influencing the people and they are doing the things that you are asking them to do willingly and voluntarily because they believe in the cause and they are going with you. If you are in charge and you are not being followed, then you are just a person who has been obeyed because you have the power to oversee and to punish. That doesn't make you a leader. It gives you authority only. And there's a big distinction between the two. If I get appointed as a minister, I will have all the power conferred on me as a minister. It doesn't mean that people believe in what I'm doing. It simply means they are obeying because they are afraid I will bring the force of law against them. That type of leadership is not as powerful as the leader who is followed, whether he has power or he has not got power. And once you understand that, you will realize that you need not always lead from the front. You can lead from the middle or lead from the back. I will repeat that. You need not always lead from the front because you can lead from the middle or lead from the back. If you have enough influence, it is possible to change things just from the back because you are the person people follow voluntarily, even though you don't have that power. And I wish many Africans understood that we can make a change, not necessarily because we have been given that power. That is why many rush into politics, because they don't believe that they can make a change from outside politics. And one of the statements which annoy me most is this statement that we are where we are because wise men and smart men don't enter politics. I don't know what makes us believe that. I tweeted about that once, that the days of Plato is different from the days of today. In Plato's days, everybody, the whole time, there were not many. They could all meet and make an argument. And therefore, if you were quote and unquote smart and you sat in the house and didn't come to argue, your opinion did not influence the vote. Today, we all don't meet in town halls. We elect assemblymen. We elect MPs. They go and represent us. Some make statements that we have not even told them to make. Why do we believe that it is because wise men don't enter politics? And the question I always ask people, are you saying no wise man ever entered politics? There are a lot of wise men in politics. I see them all over Africa. I travel all over Africa. I've been to about 30 countries, and I meet a lot of wise men in politics. The real price, right? The real price the wise or the smart pay in entering politics is that they are overwhelmed by those who want to do evil. That's the real price. They are completely overwhelmed because it is easier today for a man who is rich to become an MP or who is ready to buy votes to become an MP than for a person who is honest to become an assemblyman. That's a fact we all know. So why are you saying that because smart men are not in politics? Because the smart men cannot buy their way to get voted. But it doesn't mean they give up. It means if they want to be leaders, they ought to change things from the back by creating the conversations that those who have managed to get into politics are ready to discuss. That's what. So you don't need to lead from the front. So ask yourself, are you in authority but not leading? Do you have power just to enforce? Are you able to take charge during crisis? How do you influence things? Do people look up to you? Or are they simply obeying you but not necessarily following you? When you look at all these things, you find that we have got non-leader leaders. In other words, people who are leaders, quote and unquote, officially, but are not leading. They are neither transforming nor sending out to the destination that they promised. Leaders who don't lead at times have to be led. Yes, at times leaders have to be led. And they are led by people who are followers in the crowd, but who understand that others must lead. And when you are leading from the back, the strategy is totally different from when you are leading from the front. And I encourage everybody to understand that, because you don't have to give up. Otherwise, the whole society falls. And in Africa, we need to do these things. Be authentic, be decisive, be truthful. We know all these things. These are some of the characteristics that we need in order to ensure that we remain leaders of the type that we need on the continent. At the end of the day, no matter what, no matter how good you are, no matter how disciplined, there will be disruptions, there will be threats. But within the disruptions and the threats are always opportunities, provided you are prepared. And a leader needs to understand that no matter the crisis, look for that opportunity and make sure that you take advantage of that opportunity. Two things are important for a leader to understand, and we will come to a conclusion shortly. One is time is the greatest enemy of every leader. It's the greatest enemy of every leader. Because you tend to feel buoyant as you go along, no matter the leadership, whether you are a class captain, whether you are an assemblyman, whether you are a corporate leader, and you don't see how time passes. And therefore, never defer until evening when the morning can accomplish. And if you cannot do it, delegate to somebody. And with time, I tell people who have become very successful that the best time for a leader to hand over is when he's at the peak of his power. That's the best time to hand over. Don't wait until your power is gone before you hand over. And I live by example. I stopped being managing partner as far back as 2012. But I still play a role. I still work in the organization I created. It's very important so that you can guide people, and you have to have a succession plan as much as possible, even when you are around. We have actually initiated a second succession plan, so the system becomes institutionalized. Time is an enemy, and it's important you understand that. Second, for best results, make sure you pay attention to decision making, attention to people who are working with you, and manage your energy so that you don't burn out. Because remember, it's a very, very onerous responsibility that you bear, and people are following you. And if you burn out, at the end of the day, there will be nobody to follow unless a new leader rises. I tweeted this, and I will leave that with you. A leader may set the vision. This was August last year. But the implementation requires all hands, sacrifice, and endurance of hard times. At times we forget that. So unless a leader gets followers to buy into the agenda and the sacrifice required, his or her transformation march is a long, lonely walk to nowhere. Think about it again. I wish you a successful leadership path. Thank you.